Dawn broke over Ajwain, the rising sun casting an eerie glow through the smoke-filled air. Manu stood at his laboratory window, dark circles under his eyes betraying his sleepless night. The city he'd sworn to serve lay wounded before him, and for the first time, he found himself questioning everything. A soft knock at the door interrupted his brooding. "Enter!" he called, not turning from the window. "Manu," Priya's voice was hesitant. "Governor Vikram is requesting your presence at the emergency council meeting." He nodded, finally facing his wife. The concern in her eyes made his guilt resurface. "I'll be there shortly." As Priya left, Manu's gaze fell on a small, ornate box hidden behind his medicinal tomes. With trembling hands, he opened it, revealing a pressed flower, a memento from happier times with Rohini. "What are you really fighting for?" he whispered, his mind racing with possibilities. At the rebel camp, Rohini bent over a makeshift table, her fingers tracing supply routes on a worn map. Yayati's voice carried from outside, rallying their growing forces. "Your plan is bold," a gruff voice commented. Rohini looked up to see one of their senior strategists studying the map. "But how do you plan to get past the upper city's defenses?" A sly smile played on Rohini's lips. "Let's just say I have inside knowledge." As if on cue, Yayati entered the tent, his charismatic energy filling the space. "Speaking of inside knowledge," he said, locking eyes with Rohini, "our scouts report that Governor Vikram's calling an emergency meeting. All the city's top officials will be there." Rohini's heart skipped a beat. "Including the chief apothecary, no doubt?" Yayati nodded, his expression unreadable. "Indeed. It seems your past has come knocking, Rohini. The question is, how will you answer?" The council chamber buzzed with tension as Manu entered. He took his seat, acutely aware of the suspicious glances thrown his way. Governor Vikram's voice cut through the murmurs. "Gentlemen, we face an unprecedented crisis. This rebellion must be crushed, and quickly." As plans were discussed, Manu found his thoughts drifting. He imagined Rohini in the rebel camp, planning their next move. The woman he'd glimpsed was so different from the one he'd known. Harder, more determined. What had his betrayal turned her into? "Manu!" Vikram's sharp tone snapped him back to attention. "Your thoughts on containing the plague in the lower city? We can't have it spreading to our districts." Manu hesitated, the words catching in his throat. For the first time, he truly saw the callousness of the upper city's stance. I believe our priority should be treating all affected citizens regardless of their district," he said, earning shocked looks from his peers. Vikram's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Manu. Such talk could be misconstrued as sympathy for the rebels." As the meeting adjourned, Manu made a decision. He had to know more. Under the guise of gathering herbs, he would venture into the lower city. The risk was great, but the need for answers greater still. Back at the rebel camp, Yayati and Rohini finalized their plans. "We strike at nightfall," Yayati declared, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "The upper city won't know what hit them." Rohini nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of Manu, of the life she'd left behind. Part of her ached to confront him, to demand answers for his betrayal. Another part feared what that confrontation might stir up. "Rohini," Yayati's voice softened as he placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know seeing him has brought up old wounds, but remember why we fight. The people of Ajwain are counting on us." She met his gaze, drawing strength from his unwavering resolve. "You're right. Personal feelings have no place in this revolution. As they shared a moment of understanding, Rohini felt a fleeting warmth in Yayati's gaze that she couldn't quite define. She quickly dismissed it, attributing the sensation to the intensity of their shared cause. "We should prepare," Yayati said, his voice carrying its usual air of determination. Rohini nodded, pushing aside the lingering thoughts of Manu and focusing on the task at hand. Priya paced nervously in her mother's chambers. The older woman watched her daughter with a mixture of concern and frustration. "Priya, darling, you must try harder to capture Manu's attention," her mother urged, adjusting an ornate hairpin. "These are dangerous times. You need to secure your position." Priya paused, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on a nearby vase. "Mother, I'm not sure Manu even sees me sometimes, especially now with all this chaos." Her mother's eyes narrowed. "Nonsense. You're his wife. Make him see you." "It's not that simple," Priya sighed, sinking into a plush chair. "There's something different about him lately. Ever since the rebellion started, he's been distant, distracted." "All the more reason to draw him close," her mother insisted, moving to stand behind Priya's chair. She placed her hands on her daughter's shoulders, squeezing gently. Priya felt a flush creep up her neck. "Mother, please, it's not about that. Sometimes I feel like I'm competing with a ghost." Her mother's grip tightened momentarily. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," Priya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just a feeling, like there's someone else, someone from his past, that I can never measure up to." She hesitated, then added, Sometimes I wonder if he's thinking about Rohini." The room fell silent at the mention of Priya's half-sister. Her mother's hands fell away from her shoulders. "Rohini is gone, Priya," her mother said, her voice suddenly cold. "She made her choices and paid for them. There's no use dwelling on the past." Priya turned to face her mother, searching her eyes. "But what if she wasn't really guilty? What if we were wrong about her?" Her mother's expression hardened. "Enough. Rohini was a traitor to this city. She's dead, and that's the end of it. Your focus should be on your husband, on your future. Don't let the ghost of your half-sister haunt your marriage." Priya nodded, but the knot in her stomach only tightened. As much as she wanted to believe her mother's words, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story of Rohini's exile, and that somehow it was still affecting her life with Manu.